a balm in Gilead to make the wounded whole. There is a balm in Gilead to heal the sin-sick soul.
On April 9th, 1880, this place on the UK campus was a pasture where the president of the university kept his cows. But it was here that they played the first college football game in the American South. Kentucky University, later called Transylvania, beat Centre College 13 3/4 to 0. I guess football was a little different then. In the 1920s, the cow pasture was transformed into Stoll Field. Here on September 30th, 1933, they played the first game in a new college sports league called the Southeastern Conference. This group of Kentucky Wildcats beat Sewanee 7-0. By the 1960s, Stoll Field had a fine new press box and was ready for a third game of even greater historical significance. September 30th, 1967. The University of Kentucky, in the blue jerseys, plays the University of Mississippi, the Rebels of Ole Miss. Every scholarship athlete in every sport at every school in the Southeastern Conference is white, until now. Trotting onto the field is number 23, a sophomore defensive back from Louisville by the name of Nate Northington. As the first African-American scholarship athlete to play sports in the SEC, Northington becomes a civil rights pioneer. So today, you might assume that Nate would look back on that as the greatest day of his life. But in fact, it was the worst. The morning of the Ole Miss game, Nate learned that his Wildcat teammate, roommate, and friend, Greg Page, had died. Nate's great achievement had been transformed by tragedy. This film tells a story set in the past of how these four men had their hearts broken. But it also tells a story set in the present of how their hearts were healed. The 1960s. Jim Crow segregation still dominates life across the South, but an army seeking freedom is on the march through Selma and Montgomery, Memphis and Washington.
Keep on talking, marching up to freedom land.
But civil rights activists are not the only ones who challenged the racism of the 60s. There was another force for change that was remarkably powerful and enduring: the talent and determination of the black athlete. In 1967, when Muhammad Ali refused to fight in Vietnam, other prominent black athletes rallied in support. Leading them was the National Football League running back, Jim Brown.
Of course, probably the best player that ever played a running back, Jim Brown, was a star at that time for Cleveland. And I guess my love for football came from watching the games with my dad. I mean, he would get pretty excited about whenever Cleveland played and Jim Brown ran the ball, and he would just jump up and down and scream, you know, "Go Jim Brown, go Jim Brown." And, you know, of course, as you know, Jim Brown, he would go. I pretty much knew that I had a special, you know, talent athletically. All my brothers and sisters were pretty speedy, you know. My dad said that he was fast when he was younger, and my mother said that she was very fast when she was young, too. So it came, you know, through the genes. I think my high school coach mentioned it to me that a recruiter from UK had contacted him, expressed interest, and talked to me about going there. And my friends, of course, knew that Kentucky was recruiting me at that time, that the civil rights marches, the police brutality, and they just felt like that, I probably shouldn't put myself in that position.